All right. This is Ranking of Cage Part 3. I'm Colton, joined by Kudrow, Quinn, and
Hello.
Josh.
You guys?
All right. So, uh, today on Ranking of Cage, we are going to be ranking Leaving Las Vegas. Um, and first things first, we'll start with the synopsis from Just Watch. Ben Sanderson, an alcoholic Hollywood screenwriter who lost everything because of his drinking, arrives in Las Vegas to drink himself to death. There, he meets and forms an uneasy friendship and non-interference pact with a prostitute, Sarah. And that's that's all there is to it. Just Nicolas Cage being a drunk for the whole movie. This movie
He
was
does it
really
very well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess to start it off here, we open up. Benjamin, who this is Nicolas Cage, is out getting excessively drunk, and then he like creepily hits on some lady at the bar, and he just goes around being trashed. And the next morning, you see him, and he's like shaking, which I assume is because he's having withdrawals from alcohol. I think that's what they're implying. And he then goes on to get fired from his job. And when he's getting fired from his job, he's talking to his boss, and his boss says, "So what are you going to do now, Ben?" And he's like, "I'm going to Las Vegas." that's like the premise of the movie. So it's you know it's kind of setting him up as this ultimate just like alcoholic with a messed up life, and then he's at work, and like he doesn't even seem to be doing anything. So
I don't know, man. He works at, well, first off, he works in like Hollywood, right?
I don't know.
So-
He's talking to the phone upside down.
Right. When you look at the desk and it's all scripts, it's like
Oh.
The Godfather. So he's like,
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be a screenwriter.
Oh,
Yeah.
did it say that, or did you guys just pick up on that? Because I think that went over. I totally missed that.
It says it in the synopsis, I believe, or like in the description of the movie. That's where I heard it, and so then I was like kind of watching out for it, and then in that scene, I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. I didn't catch it. I just assume he worked in the film industry, basically, and that works because basically, but it's kind of endearing because he is at work and he's trying to, but he's clearly so wasted and on another planet that he's saying he's talking to the phone upside down and talking about like Disney or something. It's like he's totally lost his rocker.
Yeah, also him being a screenwriter was literally in the synopsis that I read like 2 minutes ago. So,
but I'd go for it. You guys take it away.
So, also in this scene, there's a scene where he's at the bank and he's like having a fantasy, but he's talking into a tape recorder about talking to the girl at the bank. I was kind of confused why he was talking to the tape recorder.
I think it was an idea for a script, is my guess. Like he's like living out his fantasy, and he's like, oh, like this could be a good idea for a movie.
Oh, okay, that's what they were saying.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if that's true, but that's kind of what I gathered. I assume that's what screenwriters and writers would do, is like they get an idea and then they're like, okay, I need to either write it down or record it, and that's kind of what he was doing.
I gotcha.
That was such an uncomfortable scene to watch, though, because like he's sitting here saying all this vulgar things into the tape recording. Is like everyone in the line,
and they're all just looking at him,
giving him this "what the fuck" look.
I think they looked kind of intent though too. They were like, "Huh, wow," and it kind of made me feel like more so like this scene, and not just this scene, but the whole movie is sort of from the perspective of just like someone who's wasted all the time. So
like he thinks they're intent on like what he's doing, but he's just drunk.
Right. He's just appearing. Right.
Because through the movie, I was kind of like, these people aren't interested in this, but it's like from his perspective.
Yeah. And it's basically, to me, what they did is they kind of made, so for me, The core of the movie is just those two characters on the cover that you have right there. That's everybody else in the movie is a terrible, unlikable, horrible person. Even the good guy. That there's a point at which I can't remember the actress's name who plays opposite Nicolas Cage, but it took me a while of watching the movie, but I couldn't. I was thinking to myself, where have I seen this person before? And I realized that she was Marty McFly's girlfriend in Back to the Future 2. Another great. That was maybe some of the origins of her work, and then she went on to do this.
Elizabeth Shue is her name.
Yes, Elizabeth Shue. Yeah.
So while we're at it, another fun fact, another show she is in is The Boys.
Yep.
I was looking at her. I'm like, where do I recognize her from? But yeah, so she's I don't know what her name is.
Recognizable.
She's the one who runs the corporation thing in season 1.
Gotcha.
Vice president. But yeah,
I was gonna say back to what Josh was saying about how they're the main characters. When I'm like thinking about how they were presented as well, like it seemed like they're always like their appearance was always like gross and like greasy and like disgusting, and it's just like something about it made me uneasy. But then like what Josh is saying is like they're the main characters, so it was like this weird like juxtaposition of like how they're perceived from outside and then how like we see them as the main characters.
Right.
And how basically everybody in the world and all the scenarios that they're in the movie, people hate them. Like they're at a hotel, Nicolas Cage falls and breaks a table, great fail humor, and the person who works in the office comes out and says, you guys have to leave by tomorrow, and don't worry about cleaning this up. Basically, just get out, and I don't even want your money. Of course, the main character, Elizabeth, played by Elizabeth Shue, is a sex worker, and so she's like approaching men at various points throughout the movie. We do meet a man who apparently is at one point who he is loyal to his wife, apparently, unlike all other men in this movie. He does have like a sense of purpose and like family and things like that. And he says basically, get away from me. Like, what are you? Or, and like, I'm not going to pay you money for sex or something to that effect. And by the way, I didn't double check, but was that Gunny from Full Metal Jacket? You guys know Gunny, classic. He was a Marine.
I haven't watched that movie. It's on my list.
He did all those. Did you guys ever watch those History Channel specials where it'd be this old Marine coming up there and he'd be like talking about helicopters and he'd be like, the A374 Huey is the best piece of machinery the U.S. Marines have ever had. I think he plays the guy. I'm pretty sure I can't remember the guy's name. He just passed away a couple years ago. But
wait, no, I don't think it was that guy.
I think it was Gunny.
Okay.
Arlie Ermy.
Yeah, I don't think that was him.
Okay. Well, anyways, even that guy who like you're like, oh, like he's not just gonna like he is just legitimately sitting at the bar having a drink and having conversation, and he doesn't have any ulterior motives to use this woman for sex.
Right.
Asshole to her and dislikes her.
So I guess we'll go here where our characters actually kind of run into each other. So after that initial scene of Nicolas Cage getting fired and saying he's going to Vegas, there's a scene with our other character, Sarah, who appears to be in an abusive relationship. And she's talking to this guy, it shows her, and I don't know, he hits her at some point. I don't think it's in that first scene, though. In the first scene, you hear the line, "You don't need to fear me, Sarah, because you and I, we belong together." And it was the whole scene set up as just like you kind of get the vibe like this isn't a great spot for her. So then it kind of comes back, and Nicolas Cage is, after he gets fired, he's at his house and he's just lighting a fire outside and just throwing all his shit into the fire. Because what you find out later is that he's going to Las Vegas to drink himself to death. That is the meat of the idea in the movie, is that Nicolas Cage is going to Las Vegas to drink himself to death, or Benjamin.
And let's just are we in the spoiler alert territory now?
Yeah, that spoiler alerts everywhere on this. We're going to talk about.
Can we just throw the cat out of the bag and say he does die? and is great.
Yeah, I
Well,
feel like
it's
I
not
mean,
great. It's pretty uneventful, but
30
but the movie follows through with the promise. Is what I
30
feel.
minutes into the movie, I'm like, okay, he's gonna die. Like that. This is what this has to be the end. Like, but
The entire time I was watching this movie, I just was literally like screaming internally, "Go to rehab, please, go to rehab."
That would be such a drag for him, that character, though.
He did
There's
not go
one
to
thing,
rehab.
Kudrow. You can't ask me to stop drinking, Kudrow. It's the one thing you
Yep.
can't do in this relationship. That's the condition that he makes on Elizabeth Shue's character. And then in exchange for that, right, there's an understanding that you can't tell me to not do my, work as a sex worker, and I'm gonna do, So they kind of have this. They're two characters that are such a cliche. He's an
right.
unforgivable drunk, and she is a hooker with a heart of gold.
Mhm.
It is their character, their tropes, their archetypes that in this movie they found a way to make these characters sympathetic, and it's through the performances of the actors for me. Nicolas
Yeah.
Cage, they made those characters more, and they just made those characters sympathetic.
So I mean, to a point, I feel like later in the movie, I
Yeah,
don't
it kind
know.
of drags on. It's kind of like a good idea for like the first quarter of the
Right.
movie, and then
Right.
it's like, he's too drunk. It's like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. All these Las Vegas movies. Have you guys ever seen Fear and Loathing? Very similar movie.
Oh, okay.
It's like
Haven't.
this author Hunter S. Thompson goes to Las Vegas with the guy, and they just go on drug benders in Las Vegas. Your movie.
Right.
But similar idea.
So
And I'll let you take it from there.
yeah. So back to where they meet, kind of. So after Nicolas Cage burns all his stuff, or Benjamin burns all his stuff, there's the montages in this movie of Vegas in like 480p. Oh man, they don't hold up so well today. Like I get it, but it's just funny to see them when it's like trying to show you this extravagant Vegas montage and it's in like standard def. You're kind of like,
And
oh,
they cut to like these large aerial shots with buildings, and it's like, did you take this on like your flip phone? Like it looks some of them do look quite bad.
right,
I mean,
right,
this movie is from like what, the early '90s, so
Right. That it's low hanging fruit, right? We all know
yeah.
that visuals are low hanging fruit. Ages so quickly.
I don't hold that against it, but
Yeah.
some of those scenes were like comical when I was watching them.
Me too. I know. And then it's just juxtaposed with this weird jazz music. It's like the whole movie is this like weird atmosphere of like what's real, and like this alcoholic, like you don't know, and then it's like
Yeah,
and like this, it just
right.
is. It's very hazy.
And they're hazy, and I guess that's what they're going for. But I guess we can talk about this now. There are so many times where it goes into this weird slow mo, and a lot of times it feels just senseless. I'm like, why is this in slow mo? But there has to be 5 to 10 times it does that. There's the slow mo makeout scene at the casino. There's a slow mo drinking of vodka and orange juice over the sink, and um, yeah, I feel like there was some more too, but
I don't know. The movie to me was just gross.
yeah,
It was just
All right.
gross.
like Nicolas Cage's character, right? That's what they're trying to portray.
Right.
He's
All
just but so Nicolas Cage moves to Vegas and he's driving his car, and then at some point he runs into Sarah and basically says, "Hey, I want to pay you to come have sex with me at my hotel," and
He
that's
says
what
it in a much funnier way.
right. I don't remember his exact line, but
Well, so I'm about to say, correct me if I'm wrong. Like when he was driving into Las Vegas, he nearly hit her with his car
Yeah.
at an intersection, and that was where they
it's a
first
chance
met.
meeting.
Yep,
yeah.
and then they encounter each other again on the strip.
Mhm.
But I think he's looking for her at that point. He goes back out to look for her because he sees her, stops, comes out of the car, and is like,
Mhm.
They have that interaction. But anyways, I'm just adding on. But yeah, you're right, Kudrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then they go back to the motel and they end up not having sex because Benjamin doesn't want to, and she ends up falling asleep there, and this is kind of giving you the vibes of, oh, look at they like each other. And then you see her wake up in the morning and like freaking out, like panicking, like she's late for something. And then you see her go back to see her partner Yuri, or
Her pimp.
yeah, it was something like that, who's mad she didn't make more money. And this is where he physically hits her. I think, is this where he hits her, or is this where?
Yeah, no, it's
Yep.
where he hits her.
That whole scene was just all sorts of abuse.
Right. And then after that, at some point we get to the scene where she goes to see Yuri again, and he is in his hotel room, and he's like he's acting weird. Something's wrong with Yuri, and eventually he says, "You must leave. We can't see each other," or something. Yuri kicks her out. So then Sarah leaves, and when Sarah leaves, you see three guys, two of them with guns, that are going to Yuri's room. And you actually saw these guys at the gas station when Nicolas Cage was first coming into Las Vegas. I, I don't. It's foreshadowing, I guess, but you just see them. That's it.
Right.
And you see them again here, and it appears that they're going to.
Well,
kill
I think it's less foreshadowing and more so of like a red herring, because it's filmed in a way where it looks like they're following Nicolas Cage, but they're not. Like, they don't care about him. They're looking for this Yuri guy, right?
You took it as them following Nicolas Cage?
No, but I didn't think that they were, because that didn't make any sense. I don't know why these people would be following this
To me,
random guy.
you just saw them at the gas station, and they looked kind of like menacing, and that was it. Like, I felt like I didn't really take it as anything, but maybe.
Oh, I wonder if they were at that point working for Yuri and were following Nicolas Cage. No, they didn't know.
Yeah,
I'm getting it mixed up. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because that would have been before he was even there.
But I seem to
No.
remember them saying he's 30 miles outside of Las Vegas. Like they're talking on this massive phone, and they're like, "Oh, he's 30 miles outside of Las Vegas, and he's going there, or whatever." But then
Right.
again, maybe that scene was supposed to be interpreted from Nicolas Cage's drunk mind or something, where he's paranoid or something. I don't know.
Anyway,
I think it was Yuri was living in LA like we had heard, and probably making money out there running the same operation. Then he must have fled or something like that, and he owed them money, like some Eastern European mobsters or something like that. And then they found him, and so that's that's kind of what I gathered.
And it's just all implied.
Yeah,
that he just dies.
right.
Yeah. So, anyways, once that happens, Sarah leaves and makes her way to where Benjamin is, and then she goes and stays the night, and actually she convinces him to come back to her place, and then they come to this agreement that she wants him to come stay at her place, but he's like, "You can't ever tell me to stop drinking," as Josh had said earlier. This is where you get that line. And basically they kind of come to this agreement. And it's this point, it's kind of weird, like the premise here. So you just have to kind of buy into this, that like she's like, "Yeah, you're trying to literally drink yourself to death." But I guess the idea is that they're both reaching out for someone when they have no one.
Well, the other piece of it that we're leaving out is throughout the whole movie are interspersed Elizabeth Shue's characters basically like sessions with her therapist. And so what those tell us throughout the whole movie is that she has nothing, and she's basically just she's just like nobody really cares about her.
Right.
She's just like a sex object for people, and that's it.
Mhm.
And she explicitly tells that to Nicolas Cage, and it's clear that the first night, that I guess it's kind of a cliche, like, oh, he goes and gets a hooker, and then like he's too whatever to have sex. It's like a kind of a cliche, but at the same time, he's the only man in the entire movie's universe that's like that, right?
Mhm.
To her. And I feel like it's like I don't know. I felt like I felt like it made total sense that she was just like, I'm just gonna stay with this guy now. Like
Right.
he's got a month, and like he's got money, and like also he seems to actually listen to me and care about me, like, and my pimp's Ned. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
this is all, and essentially that's all she has. But
Right.
really easy to sympathize with a character who has nothing though. So
Yeah, and then kind of two other things that happen around this same time. When Benjamin's talking to her, he says, "You're like some kind of antidote that mixes with the liquor and keeps me in balance." Which is, this movie's littered with like red flag statements of like, oh,
Mhm.
I imagine that's kind of on purpose. That's what they're trying to portray. But I thought those lines were funny when they kind of like these wild red flag dialogue lines. And then
Right.
when Benjamin's going to stay with Sarah and he's packing his stuff, he can't fit the clothes in the liquor he has, so he just throws out all his clothes to take a bag full of liquor. And then when he goes to Sarah's place, Sarah comes home and like it's like in the morning, and Nicolas Cage is just like passed out, drunk, laying in front of the gate, and like her two like landlords are there, like trying to figure out what the hell this guy's doing here. And then she shows up to like help carry him in. So
he's literally using like a suitcase as a pillow.
Yep.
And the landlords come out, and he's like, "Oh, hell, like, hello, good morning."
Right.
Yeah.
And he's holding a bottle of Jack.
Yeah. That's great.
And kind of throughout this whole movie, there's that like he's just wasted all the time, and she's got to like basically just be like, okay, let's take your trashed ass back to the house, and like and that's like it's like highlighting. It highlights kind of the things they run into basically with her like prostitution work and his like just being drunk all the time. And also, can we talk about the amount of alcohol that he consumes? Like where
Yeah.
he's just in like the first scene, you see him like drinking out of a liquor bottle. Then you see him just chug a whole pint of whiskey. Then when he's driving home, you see him with another fifth of vodka that he's literally chugging on the way home.
Right.
So
I think that was my favorite scene of him chugging the fifth of vodka, and the cop is just looking at him like,
yeah, because
did I just see what I thought I just saw?
right, because then it's like they're trying to portray that he's like just drunk all the time, so he's like just trash. Takes it, cop shows up, he just continues driving because he's
Just functioning.
yeah, and then after the cop leaves, you see him just chug more of it. But am I off that those alcohol amounts seem a little excessive, even for somebody who's an alcoholic? Because like, I don't know how you could consume as much alcohol as he does in those scenes. Like he just has. It's almost like exaggerated when you go to the thing and he's like there for 2 days and he just has like a whole collection of fifths just sitting there. But I don't know if they're just
Right.
trying to get the point across. Maybe,
But remember, he's trying to kill himself by drinking. So
right, but
I
when
feel like he would have succeeded quite a while ago.
he would have
Yeah.
just like got so drunk he passed out with with the amounts he was consuming. But
Yeah,
maybe
because like, especially like that one point in the club, like he's in the strip club, and he just literally takes that entire bottle and just downs it.
only
Like
a
how
pint.
how he didn't like pass out at any point and like end up like choking up on his own vomit, or how he
Can we talk about how he then gets a flask as a gift that's like maybe a half of a pint? And I'm like, that's not enough liquor for this man. He drinks liquor by the pint. Like
that's the emergency stash. If
Yeah.
all else fails.
I loved that scene when he chugged all of that liquor in the strip club because he like grabbed the guy next to him and he kept going down like lower and lower, but he didn't, he drank the whole thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was reasonable in the sense that I felt like those, I don't know, maybe my memory is just doesn't serve, but um I assume that that they were like a lot of like half open, like half full bottles, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like whatever. I don't think he's not like sitting down and making the calculations to be like, how much liquor
Right.
to kill me.
I'm not too mad about it, but it was just something I noticed. It seemed like excessive.
Sure.
So kind of at this point where we're at, kind of talking through this, they are at this point kind of together at her place, and it seems like everyone's having a good time. And they go out and go shopping, and then they're gonna go out to like the casino and gamble and stuff. And I was waiting for this. This is where it all turns bad. Nicolas Cage gets excessively drunk, which I don't know if it's more drunk than it was before, but he gets angry at a blackjack table and flips the table. So now we're kind of seeing the angry drunk side. And before he had kind of said like how much of a problem he is when he's drunk. And this is kind of the turning point where we're seeing the bad, like where it like they're together for a little bit, and then this is the point. And at this point, she doesn't freak out. She helps him home, we assume, because he's back home, and then he wakes up shaking again. And this is where you get to the scene where he's at like the kitchen sink in slow motion, drinking the orange juice vodka. Yeah, so they go on about their lives after this, but it's like there's an ominous feeling now that everything's not kind of well. Basically, then you get to the point there's another scene at the mall where he whispers a comment into her ear, and I think it was something about her being a prostitute, and then she's upset by that. And then you get to that scene you talked about earlier, Josh, where they go to the place, like the motel or whatever, and they fall through and break the table.
Right.
And then that's when you kind of see the person come out and say, I never want you to come back here again. And like you're saying, how nobody likes them. You kind of get that they're outcasted, and they're kind of like they act like kind of problem people in a lot of these places. Like they're obviously at this motel, like destroying stuff. And like with the card table where Nicolas Cage freaks out and flips the table.
Right. They've fulfilled Ben's fantasy of like pouring liquor all over a woman, right? From his tape or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That was very uncomfortable.
Yeah. I feel like that's the perfect word I feel like to describe this entire movie. Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable? Yeah.
Yeah. I would say, yeah. I would tend to use a descriptor like exhilaratingly dark. That's probably the best way you could possibly say it, because it is a lot of horrible things happen in the movie, and people Yeah,
I never thought I would be depressed watching a movie about Las Vegas, but here we are. So
beyond that, the relationship kind of seems to not be going great still. And then we get to a scene where Benjamin has a prostitute over when Sarah's gone, and then Sarah arrives home that night and sees that he has a prostitute there who she actually saw earlier in the movie, which kind of implied that she was a prostitute as well. And
that actress is drum roll.
I don't know, who is it.
Anybody watch Law and Order SVU?
Oh,
nope.
It's the main detective from Law and Order SVU.
Yeah, I see it now that you say it.
She got her big break.
I actually think going back, like even like before that scene though, like where they were like Ben and Sarah were having like dinner in like Sarah's apartment, where like she's like, I think there was like, what was it, an argument where she's like telling him like, Sarah's like, I've helped you so much, the least you can do is go get some help for me. It's just very interesting that they have this agreement like earlier in the movie when they move in, like I'm gonna drink myself to death, I'm gonna continue my work, but like you can definitely tell that as they're a lot of the tension is because of the fact like they just can't keep that original promise. Like they're growing, they're definitely like growing resentment there because she wants him to get better to stay with her, and he hates the fact that she's continuing to be a sex worker.
Yep, totally. Yeah, that's definitely what the driving force is splitting them. But so after that, she kicks him out. She basically tells him to leave, and he does. And then we kind of follow Sarah from that point, and I guess trigger warning here. This is going to be a scene that talks about rape. So after that, Sarah is basically out working again, and she finds some younger guys that want to pay her money. So she goes into their room, and they're kind of, I don't know, they're being like disrespectful, I guess I would say. And she basically says, "Fuck you guys, I'm leaving." And then when she tries to leave, they stop her, and one of them hits her, and then it's basically implied that they rape her from that point. And
there's
then
some gritty flashbacks later in the movie that spell it all out.
right,
Yeah.
So we all know it's you can't forget it after you see it. It's horrible. But yeah, it's a
Mhm.
horrible traumatic experience, and then it cuts, and then
right.
yeah, and then she's basically dejected. She's lost this guy.
They make it even worse too. Like the taxi cab, like as she's going like back home after that traumatic incident, and then there's the taxi cab driver
Oh, that
just
fucking guy.
twisting the knife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah, yeah, right. And that's kind of along the lines of the story they're telling, how nobody likes them, and like this thing she's gone through, but nobody cares because it's like, well, nobody has any respect for her to begin with. So then when she gets back, she also gets kicked out of her apartment. And then she tries to go back into the casino that she had previously went to try to pick up men, and they won't let her back into the casino. So it's kind of like everything's crumbling and falling down is what we have now. So then she goes in search of Ben, and eventually Ben calls her and tells her where he is. And then she goes to him. He looks worse than before in terms of his drunken state. And then they finally have sex with each other in this scene, and then Ben dies. And
Oh my god, it was terrible.
and
Yeah.
that's it. That's the movie.
The line where he's like, see, I am like, see how like hard you make me or something like that. I was like, no.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
So
uncomfortable.
right. Yeah, so I guess overall thoughts, any other things like for me, the music in general, I didn't like it very much. I thought a lot of the music was bad. It was noticeably bad. The cinematography in general, I felt like wasn't good. That goes along with those slow-mo scenes, and it's just kind of a lot of that stuff I didn't find to be great. The scenes kind of showing Nicolas Cage's like stages of being drunk in different parts. I feel like those were good. Like the first one where it shows him drunk at all these different places, it kind of shows his like adventures just drinking himself to death.
Yeah.
Adventures in drinking myself to death. what a phrase.
I'll give my just quick opinion. Like overall, like it's just a thumbs down for me. Like I can respect the idea of like what they're trying to do, but execution was just terrible. It's a solid F for me. Like yeah.
Wow. Oh man.
I was struggling to watch it. Like
Okay. I gotcha.
made me uncomfortable. But like the more we were talking about it, like I can understand like where they were headed. But while I was watching it, I didn't get any of that. But after talking about it, like I get it a little bit. But yeah, it's still,
you can have your
it's still
opinion.
F.
All right. Kudra, you want to give your thoughts?
Sure. As I said, like this movie is uncomfortable. Like I don't know, like
that about it. Sometimes I like when movies are kind of uncomfortable. Like it can be a draw to them.
see like this is one of those things where like this isn't the first time this has happened to me. It's like I can appreciate a number of things about this movie, but my enjoyment of it just isn't there. And like this isn't the first. Like one of the movies I went out and watched earlier this year was like The Northman, and it was the exact same thing. It's like this movie really good, but I don't enjoy it. So I mean, like I think there's a lot of interesting things here when you're looking at particularly parallels to real life alcohol addiction. Like I mean, very clearly, like Ben is very much struggling with the fact that like his wife and son, his family has abandoned him. presumably due to his drinking.
Mhm.
And that's eating up Adam, what you see with that, where he completely has that breakdown in the Vegas casino.
Mhm.
The the relationships in this movie, wow, are just very interesting, if very off-putting and weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the interactions are awkward or bad, or except for between the two main characters.
Yep.
They're okay sometimes.
Mhm.
Yep. And this is, as I said, this is easily the most dreary. This is the most depressing, like version of Las Vegas I have ever seen. But as far, I'm leaning in the B's range.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm going B or B plus. I'm gonna say B for now, maybe, but I mean I do feel like there's a lot of there's a lot of good things in this movie.
Mhm.
It's just like, but the biggest thing for me dragging it down is the enjoyment factor. I did not enjoy this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kudrow. Like, I mean, there's a lot of parts of it are tough. It's just like it's not like a fun, comfortable movie to watch. But if you, it's not, I would say it's not for everybody. But for my personal opinion, I would agree with you, Kudrow. I would also give it a solid B, just because I think that it's for the right viewers. It's worth a watch.
Mhm.
Again. But
Same.
there were another thing I noticed about it was that unlike what was that other one we watched? It Could Happen to You,
Yep. It
where
could
there was
happen.
like there was like one redeeming moment of like failure humor in that movie. This movie has so much failure humor in it that just watching that is a treat. And Nicolas Cage does deliver an amazing performance. I thought Elizabeth Shue did great too, but
Mm-hmm.
to me, she was a little bit more forgettable than Nick Cage in the movie. But yeah, at the end of the day, I would just say like B, solid B. But yeah.
Yeah, I like the stuff it goes for. And kind of with you, Josh, watch it once, not twice.
Yep.
I don't think I want to see this movie ever again. But I'm close to you guys. I've been sitting between C plus and B. And I think I'm at the C plus. I like the ideas, some of the execution. I felt like the music, some of like the cinematography. I want to say was kind of like comical maybe the first time, but I also think that kind of puts it down to a C instead of a C plus instead of a B. So with that, let's move into our ranking in the overall tier. So I'm going to pull up our list here. And all right. So where do we think this fits in the overall tier? So Quinn's down at F. Josh and Kudo are at
I
a
can't
B.
believe we gave Moonstruck a D.
And,
Come on.
and I am at a C. So, I would argue for this to be in the C overall tier. Respecting Quinn's opinion of an F, maybe it goes to a C instead of a B. What do you guys want?
I like the other ones better, but I understand where you guys are coming from. So I think a C or a D is probably good.
I can't help but notice in this group that Quinn is most certainly the contrarian so far.
Well,
All the rest of us are millennials.
I had a higher score on Moonstruck, didn't I? Or no, Quinn had, actually, no, Quinn had the highest score on Moonstruck.
Quinn had the
nice.
highest score on both of those last two, so.
Just a nice, fun family movie.
All right. So, does anybody have arguments against C for a different tier for this movie? Would anybody like to fight to move it up or down from C?
It just should not, in my opinion, if we're gonna make a group wide ranking, it should not go above C. because
Okay.
if we're trying to like combine, do some aggregate of opinions or like find some overall ranking, then
Yeah.
no way. Like there's too much bad shit in the movie. For me personally, I think I enjoyed some of the dark scenes and then the weird humor, but like no. There's a lot of fucked up shit in this movie.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
do we? I mean, so I think this is currently we have this in the C tier, we have Moonstruck in the D tier, and It Could Happen to You in the E tier. So I think to me it makes sense being ranked above those, but we could debate it if you guys thought differently.
I think C is a good ranking for.
I think
like
it works.
Josh was saying on aggregate. Yeah.
All right, Leaving Las Vegas is in the C tier.